Hello and welcome. I'm Ashley of The Ugly Sheep. Recently, I took a class on shadow weave, and in like all of my classes, we did a lot of samples so that we could learn about the different ways the structure can look and feel and use color. And while I learned a lot, I'm always reminded about how much I should probably sample in my work, and I don't. You would think that after all the classes that I have taken that I would be more into sampling, making sure that what I'm creating is going to work out how I picture it to work out. But I, for some reason, just don't. But some of the things that we did in this class that I took was change the density of the warp. So this piece was woven at 20 ends per inch, and this was woven at 40 ends per inch. And they come out very differently using the same yarn, the same colors. Now this is also woven with a thicker yarn and a thinner yarn, but I'll get to that. But some of the things that would have been helpful to test for recently are the pattern. Does it work? Is it right? Does it look good? The color combination. How light or dense the fabric is, or otherwise known as the hand of the fabric. And how much does it shrink? I can't tell you how many times the shrinkage has definitely been a problem for me. But talking about hand, this one was woven at 20 ends per inch, and it is very drapey and would make a lovely scarf. You won't see the pattern as distinctly as you will in a much closer set, but this does not make a good scarf. It's just not drapey enough. It's very sturdy. It does not stretch very much unless you're on the bias, but it does not drape. So you'd want to know that before getting into making a lot of it. Something that has also gotten me recently is color choice. This band and this sweater are using the same exact yarn, but because knitting does not mix the yarns with the over and under, the color stands out even though that they are very close in value. In weaving, it does not. One of the ways that you can check that before you start a project, or in this case I was just using yarn I had so it wasn't a big deal, you can do color wraps. And as you can see, you cannot really distinguish between the colors in these wraps. If you still have questions, you can take a picture on the grayscale, and if they are very close or almost the exact same in color, it means they are very similar in value. And I'll put a picture here of what I'm talking about. Another thing you can check for is shrinkage, and I have definitely had that be a problem when I've made, say, a scarf, and it's not as long as I had anticipated. And here, This denser weave should be exactly half the width of the less dense weave, but you can see because the 20 ends per inch fabric shrunk more, it is not exactly half. And part of that has to do with just the spacing allowing the yarn to shrink more. But that is good information to know, because if you're making a larger piece, knowing that this is going to shrink less than this, even though they are the same exact yarn and pattern, is good to know when you're trying to figure out how much warp and how wide you need your warp to be on your loom. While sampling can still throw up some weird things for shrinkage, it is still very helpful because at least you get closer than an average. Because these are both cotton, the shrinkage metric would have been the same for assuming shrinkage for both of these fabrics. And they very obviously did not shrink the same amount because of how densely woven this one is compared to this one. And then the last thing you can test is your pattern. Does it work? I initially was thinking about making a bag, but this pattern as it is warped would not be very good for this since it is very long and narrow. So in order to make a bag, I would have to maybe weave half as many rows for the front panel and then weave the exact same thing for the back panel instead of just one continuous weave to make the front and back panel in one coherent pattern. And that's really nice to know if you're making something small. Is your pattern too big for what you're trying to make, or is it too busy? It's all really good information to find out before you get the big fabric on your loom. And regardless of what you're going to make, sampling will help you, and I am going to go sample. Luckily for me, I still have some warp on the loom for this, and so I can go sample one more time to see if I get something that I like for a bag or a wallet. And until next time, happy sampling.